Looks good.
It enhances the hair.
Have I ever seen you without a beard? I'm not sure.
It'll be back in like a week.
Okay, you can get going whenever you like, Kyle.
Yeah. But I remember it was just Mark and I had the beard club going, but Councilmember Powers took it over and we're clean shaven now. So. Awesome. Are we live streaming yet?
Yep, we're ready.
Okay, perfect. All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Manhattan Community Board 6 full board meeting. It's January 12th, 2022. My name is Kyle Thide, and I'm the chair of Manhattan Community Board 6. This meeting is being called to order at 7:03 p.m. And tonight we are joined by Secretary Matt Bondi, District Manager Jesus Perez, Assistant District Manager Brendan Berth, and Community Associate Alexandra Crawford. In order to conduct an efficient meeting tonight, let's observe a few ground rules. First, no one may speak until granted the floor. CB6 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom first. The chat function should not be used for CB6 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having, or to state in writing information such as an email address or link that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a member is given the floor to speak, as the chair, I will identify you and you can then unmute yourself so that you can speak. We are required by New York State law to have a transcript of this meeting, so please keep questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Next, I know that several people have attended this meeting wishing to discuss the new stabilization bed site for 161 Lexington Avenue. Please note that the discussion on this site is not on our agenda tonight and will not be voted on as a result. If you are interested in learning more about this site, please attend our upcoming Housing and Homelessness Committee meeting next Tuesday on the 18th, at which time the site operator will speak on the plans for the site. A link to register for next Tuesday's meeting is being posted in the chat right now. That being said, to members of the public, if you do wish to give remarks during the public session tonight and have not already registered by filling out the form on the CB6 website ahead of time, you can register to speak in the public session by using the Q&A feature of Zoom. Please post your name, affiliation, and the topic you wish to speak about. This needs to be done by 7:15 p.m. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office, was posted online, and appears on the screen for you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. So board members, if you object to adopting this agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom. All right, seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. We'll now move on to the roll call.
Good evening, everyone. Matt Bondi is running a little bit late, so he's asked that I conduct the roll call. Excuse me, forgive my voice. I have COVID, so excuse me if I sound a little bit strange. Kyle Thide.
Present.
Thank you. Asia Badi.
Present.
Thank you. Neil Barkley.
Present.
Thank you. Marty Barrett.
Present.
Thank you. Elvie Barroso.
Present.
Thank you. Matt Bondi will be joining us later. Claire Brennan.
Present. Feel better, Jesus.
Thank you. I apologize for my voice. Jim Collins. Jim Collins. I believe he may not be joining us tonight.
Hope you feel better, Jesus.
Thank you. Stuart Desser. Stuart Desser.
Present.
Thank you. Yeah, I was hoping I was going to be one of those that that evaded this, but I guess not. It wasn't in the cards. Michael Devereaux. Michael Devereaux. Folks, keep in mind that I can't see you guys while I'm taking the roll, so please answer if you hear your name. One last time, Michael Devereaux. All right. Dan Devine.
Present.
Thank you. B. Disman.
Present.
Thank you. Jeannie D'Onofrio.
Present. And Palmer Hayes, sorry.
Thank you. Charles Fernandez.
Present.
Thank you. Eric Goldberg.
Present.
Thank you. Andrew Gross.
Present.
Thank you. Adam Hartkey.
Here.
Thank you. Molly Hollister.
Here.
Thank you. Paige Judge. Paige Judge.
Here. I'm sorry. I was muted.
Thank
Feel
you.
better.
Thank
Feel
you.
better.
John Keller.
Present and feel better, Jesus.
Thank you. You as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Abigail Kruzmark.
Present.
Thank you. Sandra Leftoff.
Present.
Thank you. Anton Molnar.
Present.
Thank you. Kavitha Matthew.
Present.
Thank you. Sandra McKee.
Present.
Thank you. Wells Magali. Wells Magali. Okay. Rich Mintz.
Present.
Thank you. Phil Napolitano.
Present.
Thank you. Rajesh Nayar.
Present.
Thank you. Kevin O'Keefe.
Present. Stay strong, Jesus.
Thank you. Stephen O.
Present.
Thank you. Reshma Patel.
Present, and I hope you feel better.
Thank you, Reshma. Matt Roberts.
Present.
Thank you. Jean Santoro, I understand, can't join us tonight. Larry Shire.
Present and feel better soon. Hey, Jesus, please.
Thank you, Larry. Ann Seligman. Ann Seligman.
Not sure why my space bar is not unmuting me, but I'm here and just push liquids.
Thank you. Thank you. Lou Sapersky.
Feel better. Yo.
Thank you. Seema Shaw.
Present. Feel better, Jesus.
Thank you. Sean Sherman.
Present.
Thank you. Sandra Sherrod.
Present, and I do intend to promote a motion later to allow the district manager to be ill and
To be
off.
what?
To be ill and be off this evening.
We'll see.
Jailed.
Something about indentured servitude, something like that.
Thank you for being here, Jesus.
Letty Simon.
Present, and to all who have AIDS, to have oh God, not AIDS, but anybody that's suffering with COVID or recovering, speedy recovery.
My diagnosis escalated quickly.
Speedy recovery. COVID, I'm telling you. Well, at least we got a good laugh tonight.
Letty, if this is your bedside manner, remind me not.
No, it's usually better than that. I had a rough. Bye.
Goodness, I may not survive the meeting.
You will. We'll have a good time. Bye.
Hey, Letty, thanks for the laugh, really.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Susan Steinberg.
Present.
Thank you. Anju Suresh.
Present. Feel better.
Thank you. Mark Thompson.
I'm saying nothing but feel better and present.
Thank you. Corinne Vanderdonk. Corinne Vanderdonk. Okay, I don't hear her. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Present. Hope you feel better soon.
Thanks, Brian. Maura Wan.
Present and feel better.
Thank you, Maura. Ronnie White.
Present. Speedy recovery for everyone with COVID.
Thank you, Ronnie. Claude L. Winfield.
Present. Be safe, be strong, and healthy.
Thank you, Claude. All right, we do have a quorum.
Great, thank you, Jesus. So I've asked all of our elected officials to send over their reports ahead of time so that we can compile them. You can find all of the reports that were submitted on the CB6 website, and the links to the reports was disseminated ahead of time to all board members and the general public, and for your convenience can now be found in the chat below. I will call on each of the elected officials who have RSVP'd so that they can take questions from CB6 members and the public about their pre-submitted reports. Each elected official will have 1 minute to field questions, and if there are no questions, we will move on to the next elected official on our list. If an elected official has a time-sensitive matter to report on that didn't make it into their pre-submitted report, they will have 3 minutes to do so. During this part of the meeting, we will also hear from government agency representatives who have requested to address the board tonight. So we will begin with old friend, but new City Council Majority Leader, Keith Powers. Keith, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, and I hope everyone's feeling okay. Sounds like some of us are getting through COVID. But wanted to do a very, very quick update, and of course, my report is submitted. I just wanted to start by saying, which is something that I think needs to be said, is just something about how devastated I am. I know others are about our passing of our friend Rick Eggers, who, for me, was just a tremendous guy, and both in our local politics, but as the chair of this board, was just as good as a human being as you can find, and somebody who not only had a great feel for how to run the board and how to really sort of be somebody who connects people, but also just had a great sense of humor that I deeply appreciated at all times. And I can't put into words what Rick Eggers, what kind of guy he was, but he was just simply as good as they get. And I know the whole board here knows that, and he is so deeply missed. And I can't put it to words, but just a fantastic guy. And I just want to recognize and appreciate how good he was as a chair, but better he was as just a personal friend and somebody I got to work alongside with. And when I ran for office, somebody who encouraged me in the most Rick Eggers way, which was to tell me he thinks it's a bad idea and I shouldn't do it, but if I wanted to do it, he would support me. And that was purely who Rick was. So just want to let us all remember him and how much we miss him, and how much we'll really miss him. Just a fantastic guy. And in that spirit, I always want to thank everybody from CB6 for all you guys do on a volunteer basis to make our community a better place. So always deeply appreciate you guys, the support, the friendship, and all the work we get to do together. And I also think I saw her here. I think she is here, or she will be here, but I want to just welcome our new Councilmember Julie Menon here as well. I think you guys all know her, but gets to take her first CB6 meeting as a new council member, and gets to join Senator Hoyleman and Assemblymember Epstein and all people with the fantastic group of people on CB6 who is just, I always say, the best community board, but don't tell anybody else that I said that. And with all that being said, you have my update. Pat from my office is here, who covers CB6 and does a great job at it. And so if you ever have any questions or comments, obviously, or follow-up items, obviously Pat's here. I am excited to be the new majority leader for the city council and to take over that and then take another role. So excited. Thank you, Claire. I see you clapping. Just take over that role and to do a lot more good here for the East Side, and to be joined by a whole new class of council members who I know are ready to roll up their sleeves and do a lot of work here for the East Side. So I'm thrilled about that. We have a lot of other stuff that we'll report on, but I'm going to bundle, as I used to do as chair of the CB6 committee, before I get yelled at. So just again, thank you guys for all that you're doing. Wanted to say Happy New Year. Welcome to all joining us for the first time, and hope, as always, we'll have a great year together and be able to work together. So thanks so much to Kyle.
Thank you, Councilmember. We actually do have a question for you. And
oh, sure.
Hi, Keith. I also want to offer my congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm going to just add another little bit of a nudge about the Grand Central Library. Last I heard, you were not getting a solid answer from NYPL, but when I talk to the folks I know that work there, they're like, yeah, it's a done deal. So just wondering, I know you have bigger things.
No, I'll follow up. I'll give you a follow up on that. You know, the last conversation we had with the library, the New York Public Library system leadership, they had, you know, again, they had expressed their desires to move out of that space and believing it's a temporary space, and they had reopened. This was not long ago, by the way. Reopened the other spaces in my district, you know, the sort of big, I'm lucky to have a lot of the main big libraries here in the city in Manhattan, and that they were thinking about taking that lease space and moving on from it. I like that it's there, and I know that we're not in the normal times, quote unquote, but I think it is a service to both the local community and the larger population that travels through East Midtown. So I certainly would like to see it stay. I've had that conversation with them when they first initially raised it to me, and more recently, and I'm happy to have another conversation to express my desire to see them stay. And I think the way we left it off, this was before the new year and a while back, was you know, thinking about whether there was any way to, you know, maintain a presence or do something different. And I certainly would like to, for the folks who rely on that library, I've done, you know, IDNYC sign up events there. I go there for events, you know, often. It's a nice little, you know, addition to the neighborhood there. And so I am supportive of it staying. And I think the leadership really is intent on, you know, getting out of that space. But I'm happy to kind of coordinate with CB6 to go back to them and think about ways to keep it. And from Jen, who just asked, this is the Grand Central Library, which is opened a few years back to be I forget, maybe you know when it opened up, but it's the library near Grand Central. That's like a 2-floor library on 44th Street, 43rd Street.
46. And I would say, I'd suggest two things. I know that the library does pretty substantial metrics on kind of usage and popularity. And I'd love to get what those metrics are versus some of the other libraries. And, you know, like, let's make sure this is actually a sort of fact-based decision.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I hope you're going to be doing participatory budgeting, and, you know, maybe that's an item that can be included in there, and to see what, just see what the community support for it is.
Yeah. So two things. One is we have been talking about, we slowed down or cut out PB as part of there's the resources for it weren't there from the council during the last year or so. So we have been talking about bringing back that in a version where obviously folks can continue to have input on what happens in the neighborhood. Libraries are always one of our biggest items in PB, from all the way from the Upper East Side down to parts of CB6, the ones I have at least. There are items we can fund in PB, which are like capital improvements. There's two problems with the Grand Central one. One is it's in a lease that's under 5 years, which has to be 5-year. There's a structural issue in there, but also we might be able to fund a capital improvement there, but I'm not sure we can do much about the lease or the renewal of the lease through it. I think that's a separate way to advocate, but I like it. I want it to stay. And, you know, I could talk to Kyle and others and the other electeds here about ways we can try to, you know, create some more leverage for ourselves to keep it there.
And too, this is something I'm discussing with Kevin, with his as the leader of his committee about public libraries, because as everyone knows, New York public libraries are very important to our communities, something very personal to me as well. So Kevin and I are working on what we think is the best approach to move forward to maintain a presence, whether it's that same location or an alternative location within the same neighborhood that works better. So we'll pull in the council members and other electeds as appropriate.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah,
For the
and
Thanks,
folks,
everyone.
for the
Thanks,
folks watching at home who may not have been following this saga, I see there's some questions. Can somebody mention the library by name that is closing?
It's a Grand Central Library on 46th Street, obviously near Grand Central, and it's and looking at my district, and it's on a lease, and the New York Public Library has expressed some interest in moving out of that space based on other spaces reopening. So, anyway, thank you guys. Happy New Year, and please stay safe and healthy. And always, contact me or Pat from my office here. Any issues you want to follow up with.
And I see there is a hand up for you from the member of the public. Would you like them to follow up with that?
Sure.
Or hear it now?
No, yeah, I'm happy to take it.
Perfect. Can we unmute Linda so that she can ask her question?
Linda, you should be able to unmute yourself now. Just a moment. Linda, are you able to unmute yourself? Okay,
All right, we can contact my office if there's a follow-up question.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. I see no further questions, so appreciate you joining us tonight, and Happy New Year to you as well. All right, next up, we have new City Council member, Julie Menon.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much, Kyle. And I want to thank and acknowledge my colleague, Councilmember Keith Powers, and congratulate him on being the new majority leader. It's great to see everyone at CB6. This is my first official meeting. I came last month to say hello, but now I'm finally in office and thrilled to work with all of you. I think I know many of you. I've worked with many of you for years. By way of background, chaired a community board, CB1, for 7 years. So big believer in community boards, and also served as commissioner of the Department of Consumer Affairs for the city, as well as serving as Commissioner of Media and Entertainment for New York and the city's census director. So I just say that by way of background. I'm really interested in how we can break through city bureaucracy and deliver results for all of you. So a couple quick updates. First of all, I want to introduce my community liaison to CB6. That's William Yee. He's on here. He'll drop his information in the chat box so that you all can reach him, and he'll of course be the main point of contact, but I'm always available. Wanted to let you all know we'll be moving into a new office. We will be opening soon at 1470 First Avenue. That's between 76th and 77th. So it's a little closer to CB6 than Ben Kalos's former office. We'll be moving into this office in the coming weeks. In the meantime, you can reach us at Ben Kalos's old phone number, which is 212-860-1950. William will drop that in the box, so it's the same number that Ben had. And you can reach us by email at district5, number 5, district5 at council.nyc.gov. So participatory budgeting, there was a question about before. I am 100% doing participatory budgeting. I used to be on the Board of Citizens Union years ago. We were one of the first backers of participatory budgeting. I really believe in it. So I've allocated $1 million of our budget to it. It's going to be in a very tight timeline, however, because we're on, in the middle of the cycle. So you'll be able to suggest by January 23rd ideas. And I'm going to ask William to drop in the chat box where you can submit the ideas at, because there is a email form that you can submit it at. Really excited about bringing this back. It's so important. It's for you all to decide what my office funds. On PPE giveaways, we've spent the last week, we've given out over 3,000 masks. If you are affiliated with a community group and you want masks, please contact us. We are happy to get them for you, and we'll partner with you on distributing them. We're also distributed today some home test kits. So I was at Holmes Isaacs, I know not in CB6, but in that part of the district. I'll be on Roosevelt Island on Friday delivering at-home test kits, and we're going to be getting more of those as well. COVID test sites. I was working with Test and Trace. We secured a new site at St. Catherine's Park on 68th and 1st. That site is there all week. It's in 2 different tents. One is doing rapid, one is doing PCR. Moving gears, I want to talk about a serious issue that has been happening in our council district. 2 anti-Semitic incidents happened this week alone. One at an ATM, a Chase ATM, where, can I keep going or do I need to? I'll be very brief. I just said very quickly. So a member of the community took out money and there was a swastika on it. I got the ATM shut down by Chase. They're investigating and I've referred it to the NYPD hate crimes. They are looking at it. The second incident involved a business in CD5 comic strip that had an Instagram post that contained references to the Holocaust in combination with anti-vax language. So we got them to take that post down and now I've demanded that they issue a public apology. So I'm mentioning that because we're seeing hate crimes on the rise just in general, but these are 2 serious incidents. I take them very seriously. And if there are any concerns that any of you have, please do contact me directly. So that's my report. I'm always available, always accessible, and so excited to work with CB6. Thank you and happy to answer any questions.
Hey, thank you very much, Councilmember. And we do have a question for you from the public.
Okay.
Unmute them. Marcia. Marcia, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So I'm not sure I'm even, this is my first time coming to one of these meetings. Thank you, folks, for welcoming me to this. And I'm just, I don't think I'm in the right place for this, but I'm calling because of my concern about the homeless, all these homeless hotel shelters that are popping up in this neighborhood and how it's made it so, specifically there's 2 of them within like 50 feet, like 100 feet of my house. One is on 30th Street and Lexington Avenue. It was a hotel and now it's a homeless shelter where there are men outside all the time. I believe it has something to do with Rikers. Some of these homeless folks and or they're prisoners from Rikers. They're out there smoking pot and urinating and defecating on the sidewalks in the street and drinking. There's another shelter around the corner, which initially I thought was for women and children, so I've never complained about it, but now I've heard it's been made into another men's shelter on Park Avenue between 29th and 30th. And it just feels, I mean, I go to work very early in the morning and I have been living in this neighborhood for going on 25 years and I have never felt as unsafe as I do when I go to work in the morning as I do now. And I want to know what's being done to remedy this.
Sure. Well, thank you, Marcia, for your question. I don't know if Councilmember Keith Powers is still on. So both of the locations that you mentioned are in Councilmember Powers' district, not in my district. So happy to work with him on it. But I would say a couple things in terms of homelessness in general. You know, obviously we have a new mayoral administration. We have a very new city council that is going to be looking at these, issues in new ways, because one of the things we obviously need to do is we need to build more permanent housing. The other issue
Absolutely.
I would say on homelessness is there are over a dozen city agencies right now that are tasked with addressing homelessness. Over a dozen. That does not make sense. And those agencies have largely been siloed. So one of the reasons actually I ran for council is I'm very interested in how these city agencies function. And I do believe we need to get less agencies. You know, we need to make sure that the agencies that are dealing with homelessness really have that full purview, so that you don't have a dozen different agencies that aren't really communicating, dealing with such an important issue. But I'm happy to convey their specific concerns to Councilmember Powers to make sure that he looks at that.
Thank you, Councilmember. And just as a reminder for anybody who's talking later today or asking questions about homelessness, but particularly around 161 Lexington Avenue, as I mentioned at the top of the meeting, we will be discussing this at our next housing and homelessness meeting on the 18th. Please sign up for that meeting. That's where we'll actually have the operators and hopefully DHS as well. The full board tonight is to discuss issues of what had occurred in December for our committee meetings. So if you'd like to be part of that committee discussion, please do attend on the 18th next week. I see two other questions. If these questions are related to what I just mentioned, I will refer you to the committee meeting next week. So first we have Emmy.
Brendan or Alex, can you post the meeting to the Housing Committee meeting at which 161 Lex will be discussed again, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Jesus. So let's have Emmy talk first.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you, Emmy.
Have you ever heard of an organization called Back on My Feet?
Are you talking to me or the council member?
It could be anybody, you or a council member.
Yes, I have, and it's actually being referred to in the chat as well. There's another person who, oh yes, you brought it up, Back on My Feet.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard of this organization?
I'm not familiar with it. I just saw it in the chat box. I'm happy to look into it.
I think it will be a great idea to look into it because this organization is a private nonprofit organization, but what it does is it has the contract with different shelters, including homeless shelters, shelters that house people who are recovering from addictions, and also the formerly incarcerated. And what they do is they get a group of volunteers and have the participating participants from those shelters go running 5:30 in the morning 3 times a week for 30 days. And with 90% attendance or more, these populations, these people can get assistance in education, housing, and job hunting.
Wonderful.
And the whole idea is to help build a mentality.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Emmy, for raising that and happy to look into that. So thank you for.
And I used to volunteer with them until the pandemic hit and closed down the place where I used to run with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Emmy. Next up, we have Linda. Linda, if this is again related to homelessness, I will again refer you to the committee meeting next week because we are kind of delving into committee business. So if your question is something different, please ask it. But if not, please save it for the committee meeting next week. Linda, are you still there?
Linda has permission to speak.
Hello? Okay, I think we're having some technical difficulties. So if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to the council member's office. Her information is in the chat as well, so please feel free to do that.
Thank you so much. Great to see you all.
Thank you very much, council member. Next up, we are joined by new Manhattan Borough President, Mark Levine. Thank you, Borough President, for joining us today.
Kyle, it's an honor to be here, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if Councilmember Menon is still on, but just want to say how excited I am to work with her. We're already partnering and excited to continue working with Councilmember Powers. Not sure if he is on, but a great friend and colleague in the council. This is my second week on the job as your new Manhattan Borough President. I've had a chance to work with many of you over the years. I want to acknowledge how sad I am by the loss of your former chair, Rick Agers. Really a terrible loss. And I know many of you are in mourning. What an incredible legacy of work he leaves in the community. So I join you in sorrow for his loss. I am excited to get to work with you. And I want to thank this board for being one of the most forward-thinking in the city on reimagining street space and thinking about transportation and exciting new ways. This is something I'm passionate about and can't wait to partner with you on. I've really focused on a number of big priorities for our vision for the borough. First of all, public health. This is something I've been active on since my time in the council when I chaired the health committee during this terrible pandemic. We're going to continue to focus on public health. not just to get through this pandemic, but to prevent the next one, and to make this a city where everyone has the basic right of access to medical care. Secondly, we're focused on the generational challenge of climate change and resiliency that impact every single neighborhood in this borough, including CB6. And we're looking at everything through a lens of equity because of the terrible inequality that has been revealed and exacerbated over the past 2 years. But before we can look at long-term challenges, we'd have to navigate our way through this pandemic, which is still very much in the crisis stage. And we probably don't have time to go into depth about the Omicron wave right now, but I'll say that I'm relieved to see some of the numbers moving in the right direction. There's signs that we're over the peak and starting to perhaps come down from the worst of this wave. But the level of spread is still extraordinary, about 40,000 cases a day. And we need to continue to be cautious. This is not a time to let our guard down, or we risk a rebound and another wave. The goal here is to bring about a comeback from Manhattan, and I'm incredibly optimistic that we're going to come roaring back. Not to recreate 2019, because there was a lot that was wrong with 2019 in this borough. I want us to come back as a more prosperous, a fairer, a stronger, a safer, a more just Manhattan and CB6. And I'm confident that we can do that. I want to mention one issue that I've been following closely in partnership with Councilmember Powers. I understand my time is almost up, which is the cogeneration plant proposed for Stuytown and Peter plants, actually plural, too, for Stuytown and Peter Cooper Village. I share the concerns of Councilmember Powers and other electeds, and I share their position that until we have answers to some very important questions, that this project should be paused. I look forward to engaging with all of you on this. Lastly, I want to mention that joining us tonight and continuing with my office is our CB6 liaison, Brian Lafferty. So I know you enjoy working with him, and we're excited that he will be continuing to work with us and you. So that's it for me. Thank you for having me on. I don't know if it's appropriate to take questions. I know you have a busy agenda. If it is, I'm happy to, but also happy to let you get on to the next speaker.
All right, thank you, Borough President. Yeah, actually, this is our Q&A time with electeds. So I do see a couple hands free.
Great.
The first is from board member Susan Steinberg. Susan, go ahead.
Mark, very nice to meet you. I'm Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Steinberg. Hi, and I happen to be president of the Stuyvesant Town Peter Cooper Village Tenants Association, and I was very pleased to hear about your position on the CHP. I just wanted to let you know we today received a letter from the commissioner of the DOB, who once again is claiming that these plants are absolutely correctly accessory use, which we still disagree with. So I just wanted you to know that I will forward that letter to your office. I've worked with Brian Lafferty and look forward to continuing to work with him. And I look forward to working with you.
Susan, thank you for what you've done for Stuytown Peter Cooper Village and this board. Your reputation precedes you, and I could not be more excited to partner with you on the issues of the cogeneration plants and many more. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Susan. Next up, we have Sandra. Sandra, go ahead.
Oh, hi, I'm Sandra Leptoff. I'm a member of the board and also on the health committee, but I'm raising the issue as a retired municipal worker. And I assume you know the issue about the municipal workers being switched to the Medicare Advantage plan is quite problematic. And we hope you are supporting the opposition to this switch. It's been it's been a very difficult issue. It's in the courts now, but we need all the help we can get from elected officials.
Well, Sandra, I appreciate you raising this. And, I think I mentioned I chaired the health committee last term. And so in that capacity, I engaged and spoke to many, many retirees and I've heard enormous frustration from so many in my district and around the borough. And I was pleased that, if I'm not mistaken, there's been court intervention to pause this because of some lack of information and full disclosure that many of the retirees are asking. And that seems to me appropriate. So you can count on me working with you and allies and city government on this, and would welcome you reaching out to my office at any time directly, so we can engage my budget team on this as well.
Thank you. And who would I be contacting in your office?
My budget director is Amy Slattery, but through Brian Lafferty, who you might know as your board liaison, he could connect you to the appropriate person.
Thank you.
And if I could just mention one more name in my office who's important. I don't know if she's on right now, but we have a brand new director of community affairs, which is Tricia Shimamura, who's wonderful and probably is known to many of you. So we really do have an all-star team ready to partner with CB6.
Fantastic. We also have 2 questions from the public, Borough President. We have David. David, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Now you're on mute, David.
Okay. Borough President, one big question I have is, what's your position on sidewalk cafes, the shacks?
Hi, David. Good to meet you. I don't know if you're talking about outdoor dining, so you're talking about, got it. Well, look, I think that I love outdoor dining. I think it's one of the things that saved the city in the worst days of the pandemic, and I hope that it will be a permanent feature of the city. However, in order to make it work long term, I do think the program needs to be tightened up. And that I don't think a one-size-fits-all solution works. I think it has to be tailored to individual neighborhoods, depending on the physical conditions of the streets and other factors. And we certainly have to have assurances that sidewalk passage is not blocked for people who are mobility impaired or wheelchair users, et cetera. So I do think there's some work to do to make the program successful for the long term. And I don't know if CB6 has been engaged on this. I'm guessing you have. But I would love to partner with CB6 on figuring out the way to make this work for your neighborhood in the long term. And hopefully, David, you can be part of those conversations.
Listen, I'm in District 7, which is really affected by this, and I would very much appreciate being having some type of coordination with you on this issue. The other thing I'd like you to remember is we always talk about business and tourism and all that kind of stuff. One of the ways you bring tourism to a city is by having architecturally interesting situations. What you have with these shacks is just plain ugly. And I think that if any consideration is being given to this, well, then you have a lot of really incredible architects and designers living in the city, and this could be a way of bringing tourism in. So I'd like you to keep that under your mind. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, David. Next up, we have another question from the public. Kali. Kali, go ahead.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, Kali, I think you went on mute again.
Can you all hear me again?
Yes, you're good now.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Borough President, I speak to you as a resident of CB6, but also as a pastor. I pastor the historic Emmanuel AME Church in Harlem. And an issue that continually comes up in our CB6 meetings, because it's an issue in our local community, is homelessness. And we have an issue of drug addiction and mental illness among our homeless. And it's not just CB6, but it's something that we're seeing across the borough of Manhattan, and it's of extreme concern for lots of residents in CB6. Can you just talk to us a little bit about what your thoughts are, in our community and, of course, borough-wide, about what your approach is going to be to helping us to mitigate this growing issue?
Well, thank you so much, Pastor Mutu. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. But yes, I'm grateful for your question on what is one of the most serious crises affecting New York City right now. It is a crisis. It's a human rights catastrophe that we have thousands of our fellow New Yorkers who are unsheltered. And we need to attack this on every front to undo what has been years of failed policy. We need to improve our mental health services in the city because that is deeply connected to homelessness. We have to improve the way that we support New Yorkers who are struggling with substance use, also deeply connected to homelessness. We have to improve our shelter system so that people do not feel unsafe in the system and opt to remain on the street simply because they feel less unsafe on the street than they do in the shelters. We need to expand the kinds of shelters we have that are proven to bring people off the street, like Safe Haven, which are sometimes called a housing first model, and bring people in, no questions asked. And most importantly, we need to have more affordable housing in general, and specifically supportive housing, which is proven to be effective at bringing people in off the street and keeping them off the street. Supportive housing, of course, is not just housing. It's got mental health services and social workers and job training all in the building, often 24/7. We just don't have enough units. So we need to work on this on every front. I appreciated the compassion in your question, Pastor, and would love to work with you and this board on tackling this problem in CB6 and borough-wide.
Your office shall hear from us, Mr. President.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you so much, Borough President. I see no further questions for you.
There was a question in the chat. I don't know if it's appropriate to answer about a new question we've added to our community board application. We are taking applications for the community board. I saw a question about, we actually added a new question about whether you own a car. And is it okay if I just briefly address that, Mr. Chair? I know that we spent a lot of time already. There's a wide variety of questions on these applications. You've all filled them out about your housing type, your employment type, and so much more. Community boards have such a direct role in setting the transportation agenda for the city. We're in general looking for the greatest diversity of perspectives and experiences we possibly can on the board. And that also should include a diversity of perspectives on how you get around. And we want to make sure that we have a balance of people who primarily get around by car, primarily get around on foot or mass transit or bicycle, and other modes, because that's going to guarantee that we can have a full and robust debate. And this question doesn't include anybody. It just gives us another way to ensure that we have a diversity of perspectives that reflect the folks who live in our boards in our borough.
Perfect. Thank you, Borough President. Yes, and actually I was going to mention that later too. The deadline is March 1st, and I believe the application is live now.
Yes, it is.
Please check that out. Please go to the Borough President's website. And Brian Lafferty, who is our board liaison, his information is in the chat as well. So please save that and feel free to reach out. And thank you again for joining us, Borough President.
Thank you all so much. Can't wait to work with you.
Thank you. And Brian, if you could include the link in the chat. I see someone asked for that. All right. Next, we're really pleased to welcome the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg. It's a great honor to have you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Good to see our borough president as well as others. Yeah, so happy to join, and I'm not too far from Reverend Mutu's church, so it's also good to hear his voice as well. Your neighbor, as I said, to the north in Central Harlem. Just for those who don't know me, I'll just start for overview. I'm been a federal and state prosecutor for almost all of my career, focusing on the full range from everything from, guns and armed robbery to public corruption and Wall Street and computer crimes, the whole spectrum, which, right here in Manhattan, unlike other DA's offices across the country, we have a little bit of everything from City Hall to Wall Street to obviously our shops and stores. We're getting to work and have started really trying to give primacy to the violent crime that is besetting us. We obviously had the shooting in the Burger King in East Harlem this past weekend. Guns are something that I've done professionally, but also personally, from as early as growing up and having guns pointed at me 3 times, including a semi-automatic weapon, to as recently as late last year when I had a shooting on my block. So that is really mission priority 1. Also, and I'm just following up, I guess, on Reverend Mutu's question about sort of homelessness, really trying to address, talking to shop owners and trying to address shoplifting, but trying to address it and sort of separate into a couple of categories. We have our homeless and other folks suffering from addiction who are stealing items of survival, and trying to move away from prosecuting those cases to getting diversion and support services, but dividing those from the kind of cases where we have we see the smash and go kind of descending upon a store. I was talking to a store owner with that earlier today. That's very significant. I view that as organized criminal entity, and it's having an effect not only on property but also on people in terms of their safety. So that also is another top priority. And just because I assume we've got a number of paper readers, I want to kind of directly address. We've had some reporting over the last week or so about some of the things I want to do with the office, and it's true. I certainly want to do more, as I mentioned, diversion for our homeless. But there's certainly been some characterizations or misunderstandings, to be fair, about positions on kind of what I view as firm core public safety issues. So as I said, I've got personal experiences with guns. I've prosecuted guns, and certainly view the kind of people going into stores with guns and knives is a very, very significant conduct, including also, just gun possession, people walking around our city. It's going to be something that we're going to continue to give primacy on. We've been focusing on it just in these very, very early days. So with that framing, I'm happy to kind of, take questions.
Perfect. Yeah, we actually have a couple of questions for you. Andrew, go ahead.
DA, it's nice to see you. Apologies, I'm a little under the weather. I think I also have COVID, so I'm here. But
sorry to hear that.
Thank you. Look, I believe in giving everybody a fair shake, and I have to be honest with you. I'm following the press, like you mentioned, quite carefully, and I'm extremely concerned about the crime in Manhattan. I'm extremely concerned about violent crime, and I had to tell you that maybe you could dive a little bit deeper into. You said that the press was not articulating your views accurately, but there's just story after story that people who are going to commit violent crimes are basically going to get a slap on the wrist, and they're going to get sent back out into the streets. The mayor, obviously, according to the press, seems to be at odds. I saw what a DA McMahon in Staten Island had said the other day, that he's was surprised by this. I don't want to put you on the spot, but maybe you could dive a little bit deeper if the press is really wrong about what you're saying.
Yeah, no, look, I appreciate the opportunity because as I said, I've been living public safety challenges my entire life. And so in some ways, when people misunderstand me on that, it's kind of personally stings because, I think many people talking about it probably have never had a gun pointed at them. I've been shot at. I've had a homicide victim on my doorstep. I've had a knife at my neck and a semi-automatic weapon to my head. So it's very, very personal for me. But with that said, I don't want to put it on the press completely. I want to own, we put out a document that, apparently wasn't sufficiently clear. And so that's why I wanted to be kind of very clear and start with that top line here. The confusion was sort of just exactly the distinction I was trying to draw. We were trying to articulate that we weren't going to treat, particularly kind of, shopliftings and trespasses that were animating from substance use disorder and not putting people in kind of, bodily harm from the more serious ones, which I think are what we're sitting around our kitchen tables talking about, which is, knives and guns and things that are putting people in danger. And we thought we had separated those categories, but apparently some didn't think we did that sufficiently. So, what I can say is that I've done it. I've charged people for gun possession. I've charged people for armed robbery. I've done the work. So to me, it's sort of, I don't understand how folks came with that conclusion. I will say, I think it kind of became sort of a firestorm, so that once a couple people reported it, they just sort of reported on the reporting. You mentioned the mayor. The mayor's, he actually, his quotes have not been critical. I mean, his quotes have, been, I don't know what the exact quote are, but something like, he's a fine prosecutor. He's on team public safety. The reporting, which I think was covered some, but maybe lost in the shuffle, so I'll flag it, was, I met with the police commissioner yesterday, talked about, some of the things that there was confusion on, and we issued a joint press release. So I think that for some, there was some confusion, and then there became reporting, which is kind of, layering on top of each other. But I've done the work. I've been doing this for the past 20 plus years.
Yeah, sorry, just to be clear, because that was a long answer, but like, if somebody uses a weapon in a violent crime, should that person face jail time?
Yeah, I mean, if someone is using a gun, a knife, a violent weapon like that, yes. Sorry if I wasn't specific. Yes, and I mean, I would say, of course, yes. That's a core public safety issue.
Thank you very much, and good luck.
We also have 2 questions from the public. Veronica, start with Veronica. You should be able to unmute.
Hi, yes. Thank you for the opportunity today. So I want to address a little bit of the distinction you're trying to make. So I live in District 6. I have 2 small children, and I have been extremely worried about the public safety of my 2 children. And it's because we've experienced it. So the nuanced situation of you're saying of shoplifting, armed, not armed, people under substance abuse. So I will no longer take my children to a Duane Reade, because the last time that I went, I had my 2 children in my stroller at 3 p.m. in the afternoon on a Monday. And we were making our way to an aisle, and all of a sudden I turned into the aisle, and a man, obviously under substance abuse, came in to Duane Reade and started stealing, but it wasn't out of necessity. He was taking everything he could get his hands on. And he gave me the most scary look I've ever experienced in my life. Because in that moment, I had no idea if he was violent or not, stable or not, if he was going to harm my children or not. And I did not know what to do. And I am sorry, but as a mother trying to just live in a city that I chose to live in, that I pay taxes in, I should not feel what I felt that day. And I should not be scared to have my children go into a pharmacy at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I just don't understand how we're going to ensure that those situations, and that what I felt, other mothers don't feel the same way. Because I don't know if he had a knife, and I don't know if I would have walked away or stepped back if he would have charged me or not. And by communicating that you will not prosecute them, my fear is that you will be encouraging them to continue to do that type of behavior. So I want to know what you say to people like me, mothers of young children trying to stay in the city. I mean, we're committed and we're trying to stay, but these types of public safety issues make it really difficult.
So I'm very sorry that happened. I've got two kids myself, and have certainly been in situations similar to that. So I'm sorry to hear that happened. So I want to be clear. That person will get. It's not that there's no prosecution. What the hope is, and I'll just sort of start with the most basic. It doesn't apply to all. That person gets arrested, and to your eye, that person had some sort of addiction issue. The goal, if that is what it was, and if it was, I don't know how much the person took, but let's say, $50 worth of things, is if it was driven by the addiction, to link that person to services so it doesn't happen again. But what would happen otherwise, and what's been happening for, generations, certainly my whole life here, is that that person would go to Rikers for not a long period of time and would come right back to the same, park bench or store and would escalate. So trying to get that person the services so that doesn't happen again. And if when we arrest them, the person is if you said charge you and there's some other things happening there, then it's all sort of fact-based in that way. If they're doing something that is physical to you, in addition to the shoplifting, that's obviously going to taking that into consideration.
Right, but the problem is that repeat offenders there's no way to deal with repeat offenders. So if someone just takes $50 here and $50 there and $50 over there, then these stores, and I've spoken to these managers, I mean, I am part of the Mothers for Safer Streets, and we have tried so much to address this issue of repeat offenders and recidivists because they just keep doing it over and over and over again. And they just rotate between the Duane Reade and the CVS and the, the pharmacy, any other place that they can find. And it's a constant issue in my neighborhood here. And I know in many others in Manhattan. So how do we deal with that person actually going and getting the help that they need instead of knowing that there's not going to be another consequence, because then they're just going to get arrested again. They're going to say, yes, I'm an addict, please help me. And then they're not going to follow through.
Right. So I think you said a couple of things that we're really trying to follow up on that are key. One is the tracking, because it is a particular issue that, particularly in a city with 5 different DA's office, that you're kind of bouncing around, not just neighborhood to neighborhood, but sometimes in other boroughs. So we're going to be tracking. And the other is capacity. I heard our borough president refer to, talk about supportive housing, and we are working with service providers to deepen it. I mean, right now, what has been happening, and not just for right now, but for a while, is that there's not the sustained, service that folks need. And we think by this approach, connecting people to services earlier, tracking it and staying on top of it, we won't have what's been happening now and for a long time, which is kind of this rotating in and out of Rikers Island without getting into it. And then we always read the paper, the 8th arrest, something happens, very violent, and people say, what happened the first 7 arrests? We're trying to do it not on the first 7, but on the first or the second, whenever the one that we are first engaged on. So that's that's what we're doing. I was just earlier tonight talking to a storekeeper and trying to work in conjunction with them and the police department to address some of the issues you're talking about.
And I really wish you all the luck in the world, and I hope that it happens.
Possible.
All right. Thank you, Veronica. Next up, we have David.
Hi. What I'd like to say is that what you are facing now is something that has existed for 30 or 40 years. It's just being magnified right now. But I'll tell you how you can succeed at this. The way you succeed at this is to realize that the greatest investment.
David, just to cut you off quickly, this is a question and answer period. So if you don't have a question, I would refer you to reach out to the DA's office directly, because we don't want to, this is not a committee business section. This is a question and answer. So if you have a question, please feel free to ask it.
Well,
if
yeah.
not, please connect with the DA's office. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do, but I just would like to preface
Could you
the question.
just ask the question, because you weren't leading into a question?
Oh, well.
We do have other people raising their hand.
I'm going to be very quick.
Well, is it a question, David? Is it a question?
It is a question. Well,
Please ask the question.
Okay. The question is, how do you succeed in what you're trying to do if we don't have our teachers being paid a livable wage, where you don't have new schools that are designed properly? But if you could just concentrate on that, it would go a long way.
So, I certainly do not disagree with the principle. I agree with it. Broader investment in our communities. Certainly done some work on the public corruption front to make sure that monies that are supposed to go to those purposes end up there. But I think my primary role in the equation is to focus on the kind of things the last person was just talking about of, people feeling unsafe and their property not being safe. And so we're going to invest in the services for people who come before us if that's what's driving them. But while I share what you're saying on kind of policy making, I don't have oversight of the schools, and we do have sort of a gun crisis and other safety crises. So I think that's my first focus. But I hear your concern.
Thank you, District Attorney. We have a question from our own Public Safety Committee Chair, Matt Roberts. And while he asks his questions, I do urge the public members who have questions, if you have questions, please ask them when we cut to you. If you have something specific you'd like to discuss, please reach out to the District Attorney's Community Liaison. Ling Jun included her information in the chat, so please feel free to reach out to her with more specific circumstances. Matt, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Kyle. District Attorney Bragg, welcome and congratulations on your new role. Wishing you all the best. Just to a public service announcement, we've already scheduled some time with your office for our February committee meeting. So I do want to invite everybody to partake in a more detailed discussion of the some of these changes that we're discussing. So as far as a question, I do have one question here. I did read your 10-page memo. And one of the topics that's not getting a lot of conversation is not prosecuting for the act of refusing to pay the fare for public transportation under theft of services. Can you elaborate on that? And isn't that going to pose some safety risks on our public transit system?
Sure. So the first thing I'll say, which may not have been expressly stated in the policy, is that this is something that my predecessor, District Attorney Vance, announced, I think, in 2016. So it's a continuation of a policy. I certainly know we're sort of in a different moment, post COVID. But I think the thing is to get people back on the trains, and more people on the trains will ultimately make them sort of safer. So I'm focused on train safety and not necessarily on the fare evasion. The comparison that jumps off the page for me, is, and I don't know, I heard our borough president talk about car ownership being part of the community board, but I'm assuming there's some folks with cars, and if you've got an easy pass and you don't pay that, you go through, you get a ticket. I mean, you don't get arrested. That's what's been happening in the trains really for quite some time now, that you get, a civil summons, and look, if that arises from something else, there's a pat down there and there's a gun, then that's becomes very, very serious. So I'm much more concerned about the public safety on the trains, and the fare evasion, I think, does connect to some of the broader public policy issues about investing in infrastructure that both the borough president and the last or the second to last questioner asked.
All right, thank you. And again, we look forward to continuing the conversation in committee in February with your staff.
Thanks. I look forward to it too.
Thank you. And last we have Joanna. Joanna, feel free to unmute.
Hi, my name is Joanna. I live, I'm actually next door neighbors with Kali Mutu, who was on earlier. DA Bragg, it's an honor to be able to speak with you and to give you my question. My main concern is the lower east 30s of Murray Hill CB5/6 and this shelter density issue that we have going on here. And what my question to you is what type of diversion programs do you plan to focus on for this type of population? And just that's my question, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background because I'm not sure you know specifically what I'm talking about. The lower east, yes?
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. So earlier on the meeting, 161 Lexington was mentioned, and that is a hotel that was converted into a shelter during the pandemic that served a variety of clientele. There were rumors that they were parolees from Rikers, I'm not sure. It was never confirmed or denied, but I do know that the population there was severely marginalized, men who were in crisis most of the time. And just to give you a little background about me, I'm a native New Yorker. I grew up in the city. I've lived in this area for 15 years, and I work for a nonprofit where I work with, I've developed several successful internship training programs, and I serve clientele from the Doe Fund, Getting Out and Staying Out up in East Harlem. They were on 116th. If you're in that neighborhood, you probably saw the offices. So I've worked with formerly justice-involved young men, housing insecure other gentlemen to help them, find their way. And this is a population that I identify heavily with and I work with on a daily basis. But in our neighborhood down here in the East 30s, we have a shelter on each block, and we have a density issue to the point where the men that are here, there are no wraparound services for these people. They're in crisis, and they've been stuck in hotels, warehoused, like chickens on a Purdue farm, where they're told to leave during the day. They have no recovery, no other services, and they're just going bananas, as I would too if I was in their position. And so what we really do need to do is discuss the density issue and the fair share clause that's in the charter in New York City. But also, aside from that, even, we know that we can't, erase this problem. There are always going to be this population. What types of diversion programs do you think really work, and how can we get them in place for people in hotels where there's no physical space and no staff for the wraparound services that they desperately need? Thank you.
No, thank you for the question, and obviously you're incredibly informed on the issue. I think you hit the nail on the head with two kind of sub issues. The first is density. So we have neighborhoods, and if you're Reverend Mutu's neighbor to the church, we've also been discussing this uptown in that neighborhood near where Goso is, of just certain neighborhoods kind of having more service providers than others. So I think there's that first issue, which is sort of a kind of public policy planning issue. The second one, I think, is something we can really evaluating. I'm meeting tomorrow with a group of service providers. I believe Goso is going to be in that meeting, and to put together metrics and think about how we can evaluate, because there are some that are just not doing it the same way, and we've seen the sort of I'm thinking about some up here where I see the disparity in service from neighborhood to neighborhood and provider to provider. So that's something I think we can do, unlike the question about sort of education investment, which I completely agree with, but is a bit beyond my purview. The efficacy of what the providers are doing, if we're sending someone to a group, we're going to be evaluating that and working with them hand in hand. So it's a process where, we're just starting. Like I said, I'm meeting tomorrow to talk about some of these issues and talking to a lot of the service providers. So I'd say you sound very informed on this issue. I see that Lin Jung Chin from my office put her contact information in. So if there's more information to share or more thoughts, I would encourage you to reach out.
Thank you so much. I will definitely reach out to your office. I really appreciate you talking about that with me. And I want to hear about what you're doing with Goso. I wish we had Goso downtown. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, District Attorney. Intense first meeting, but I appreciate your time and your willingness to answer all of these questions in detail. That's what Community Board is for. So we really appreciate your candor and your willingness to answer these questions.
Thank you.
So you're off the hook for tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, and look forward to joining you all again.
Thank you. And we look forward to your office's attendance at our public safety meeting. So appreciate it. All right. Next up, we have Senator Hoyleman.
Hi, Kyle. This is not your normal normal efficient self, I have to say.
Yeah, this is also our January meeting.
I know. Our new elected officials are going to be shocked next month when they come and they're cut off at their but it's good to see everyone. You've got my report. And I just want to also add my condolences to the friends and family and the community of Rick Edgars. Really, even when he was battling his illness, he was still a mensch and was so thoughtful and helpful to me in my office. So I know everyone on this Zoom will miss him. And just one thing I will note that is of relevance, particularly for community boards and this community board, is the legislation that we passed yesterday to allow all public bodies to continue video conferencing options for meetings during the duration of the state of emergency. That will continue forward. But in the meantime, I am introducing standalone legislation that will complement legislation I introduced earlier, allowing video conferencing for community boards. I've tailored it now to just be video conferencing options for voluntary boards and meetings like community boards and other groups such as school boards. So I just wanted to let you know about that and wish everyone a happy new year. Again, my report is uploaded and ready for your viewing pleasure.
All right, thank you very much, Senator. And please do send us a copy of that legislation so our Budget and Governmental Affairs Committee can discuss and pass a resolution on it.
Thank you.
I do have a question for you. Anne, go ahead.
Hi, actually, I have kind of a question and kind of a statement. The question is whether you have heard anything. Somebody kind of told me something about possible money for the East River Greenway. I don't know if somebody is here from Carolyn Maloney's office because I'm not even sure if it was federal, state. I know there's some city money, but I know that it's an issue that you have really been connected with and paid a lot of attention to over the years. So that's the question. The comment is also, I think there are so many of us missing Rick and recognizing what he provided to us personally and to the community. And I am thinking about kind of hosting a little bit of a Zoom. I love Awake, where you can talk story and raise a glass and say all the great things you love about a person. And I'd love to do that for Rick and for everybody here to provide them the opportunity. So sometime in the next 10 days or so, I'll probably be sending out a Zoom invite. We'll have some breakout rooms. And, Brad, I sure hope you'll be there, and other board members and anybody else who loved Rick the way we do.
Thank you. I would love to attend such an event in celebration of Rick's contributions and life. But in terms of the Greenway, I'm not aware of state funding at this point. I know the city and feds have been discussing it. I know Carol Maloney has made it a priority. I will say that the budget process really begins next week in terms of what the governor is going to be presenting for her executive budget. Also, we plan to introduce once again community board budgeting, where we have several $1 million for our local communities. I want to get advice and consent from community boards on how to spend that money. It is narrowly defined for certain projects, but I'd be certainly eager to see if the Greenway plan might qualify, and if it's something CB6 wants to make a recommendation to my office about. Sam Vasquez, my colleague, has put his information in the chat, but you can always contact me too at Hoyleman@nysenate.gov. And of course, Ann, let me know about the memorial service for Rick.
Thanks,
All right.
Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. I see no further questions for you. So we greatly appreciate you attending tonight, and Happy New Year. Thank you so
Happy
much.
New Year. I'll be going back to Albany next week.
Enjoy. All right, next up, we have Assemblymember Epstein.
Hello, everyone. Assemblymember Epstein had to go into another meeting, but hello, everyone. Happy New Year. My name is Joanna Sanchez. I'm the community liaison for Assemblymember Epstein. First, I wanted to wish everyone a Happy New Year. I hope everyone is safe. We would like to announce that we have free COVID-19 testing for all ages. That is PCR testing only. It started on Monday, January 10th, and it will be through January 14th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then on Monday, January 24th through Friday, January 28th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. I will put that information in the chat as well. Yes. We also, Assemblymember Epstein, also, I'm sorry, and the COVID testing is being provided by Somos. If anyone has any questions or concerns, feel free to contact me directly. I will reinsert my information in the chat. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Joanna, appreciate it. And feel free to reach out to Joanna if you have any further questions or comments for the Assemblymember's office. Next up, we have Brees from Assemblymember Godfrey's office.
Yes, thank you very much. I know the meeting's running long tonight, so I'll be very brief, but last month, Assemblymember Godfrey did announce that after 52 years in the State Assembly, he will be retiring at the end of 2022. He has greatly appreciated the opportunity to represent Community Board 6 in the Assembly for these last, I would say, decades, a couple of them at least, and appreciate service. We did pass on yesterday the news Senator Hoyleman talked about the open meetings law. Several of Assemblymember Godfrey's bills have been signed into law since your last meeting in December. I've included links about those in the chat. The health equity bill that will require when a big hospital is making a move or downsizing like Beth Israel attempted, that it will be required to include a health equity assessment about underserved communities and how the move would affect those communities as part of the certificate of need process. 2 laws on clean water, one governing the amount of lead that will be allowed in water in any school system, and another require establishing an extensive list of contaminants for which water systems all across the state need to be tested for. A bill to regulate pharmacy benefit managers. They're kind of middlemen in the industry who have really driven a lot of independent pharmacists out of business and helped drive up prices for consumers. And a bill on midwife-led birthing centers, making it easier to open those and operate those in New York, which advocates said now makes New York as having the gold standard in licensure certification process of midwifery. The health department is formulating regulations on another bill that is now a Godfrey law that requires nursing home operators to publicly reveal if they have relationships or family relationships with related businesses with which their nursing homes are doing business, like contractors, real estate firms, etc. For some reason, this has not been required, and this secrecy is actually pervasive in nursing home industry across the country. But now there will be regulations for the new law, and that will no longer be the case. That's really it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Brees. I see no questions for you. So we'll move on to Senator Kruger's office. Madeline, go ahead.
Hi, CB6. It's Madeline from Senator Kruger's office. Happy to answer any questions about our report we submitted.
All right. Are there any questions for Senator Kruger's office? All right. Seeing none. Thank you very much, Madeline. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Taylor for Congressmember Maloney's office.
Hi, I don't have any updates besides what is in the report since I just sent it today. So if anyone has any questions, let me know. The only update I do have is that we will be working with Legal Aid next week to host a information session on expungement and record sealing and who is eligible and how folks can reach out to them if they find out they are eligible or someone they know is eligible. So I will be getting the link out for that later this week and keep an eye out for it.
All right. Thank you very much, Taylor. I see no further questions for your office. So we'll move on to Alex from Assembly Member Quart's office.
Hi, everyone. Alex here. Since the open meeting law extension has been mentioned, I'll just very quickly say that yesterday we allocated over 900 COVID tests to the Vanderbilt Y and are continuing to allocate tests to community organizations. And in case people haven't seen the news, this session will be the Assembly members last. And happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Alex. I see no further questions for your office, so appreciate it. If everybody could just include their information in the chat as well in case there are any follow-ups that pop up later, would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. We'll next move on to Katie from Councilmember Rivera's office.
Hi, Katie from Councilwoman Carlina Rivera's office. I'll be brief, so I'll just take questions.
Thank you. All right, and I'm not seeing any questions, so thank you very much, Katie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Bobby from the Parks Department.
Good evening, everyone. Just one quick event I wanted to talk about on January 21st, a Friday night. We're having a neon glow in the dark spin challenge. So it's basically a spin bike event that's going to be taking place in the dark with neon glow sticks. 3 different sessions. You can sign up for them. One is 6 to 6:30, the other 6:45 to 7:15, and the other 7:15 to 8 o'clock. I'll leave my email in the chat. If anyone wants to sign up for them, you do have to sign up in advance. Just send me an email and I can work with you on that. Anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
All right, thank you very much, Bobby. I'm not seeing any questions.
All right, thank you guys. Have a good night.
You too. All right. Do we have anyone signed up to speak in the public session?
Yes, we do. We have a handful of folks.
Okay. I just want to mention before we jump into that, the list of speakers that we do have that pre-registered are people who already spoke on the topic that they wanted to speak about. So in interest of time, because we do have to move on with the agenda, anybody who did speak before, particularly because everybody who's pre-registered is from the same organization about the same topic, I'm not going to let you speak in this session. So we'll go on to the people who did not speak. Thank you.
All right, so we will go to Yvonne Fazer, who is a resident of Community District 6, who wishes to speak about the 161 Lexington Avenue site. Ms. Fazer, you have 3 minutes for your remarks. You may begin now.
Actually doesn't look like Yvonne is present.
All right then. Next on the list is Reverend Mutu, but as he already spoke earlier, we'll move on to Julie Friedman, who is also a resident of Community District 6 and a member of the 29th Street Neighborhood Association, who wishes to speak on the topic of the 161 Lexington Avenue site. Ms. Friedman, you have 3 minutes for your remarks. You may begin now.
Background, I'm Julie, and I've lived on 30th Street for 22 years, raising my children and my family here, and befriending my neighbors, fully participating in Kips Bay and Murray Hill. I volunteer on staff with hospice services, and I hold the hands of people as they face the end of life, including homeless individuals, as well as a broad spectrum of diversity of New York City. I have an MSW and a PhD in social welfare, so now you know the direction and the orientation from where I'm speaking. Because of opportunity, not because of strategic planning, 30th Street is now the host to an oversaturation of social service providers on 30th Street and within 1,000 steps of 30th Street. And I use a step
Could somebody tell the speaker that she's inaudible, and perhaps we could correct that?
Thank you for
I think we just did.
What part did you miss?
I was able to hear everything.
Okay, thank you for that.
That was stated. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So because of opportunity and not because of strategic planning, 30th Street is now the host to an oversaturation of social service providers on 30th Street within 1,000 steps of 30th Street. I use the 30th step count because I think in terms of steps, not in terms of yards or miles or feet or inches, steps, like a human being who walks the neighborhood. So I'm framing the next minute allotted to me to talk about the density of clustering. This is not an ideological. This is a problem specifically to the lower 30th Street specifically. Brandon, are you able to share my screen? Brandon?
Yes, just a moment.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So the facts that I'm about to share with you are graphical in nature. They are not ideological. So as you can see, 161 Lexington Avenue at 30th Street sits 220 steps from Main Chance, which self-describes as one of the largest drop-in men's centers in the city. We estimate 250 men a day. That's 220 steps under a 1.5-minute walk from 161 Lexington Avenue. 161 Lexington Avenue at 30th Street sits 212 steps from the Clarion Hotel shelter. 120 men in 212 steps. That's under a 1.5-minute walk. 161 Lexington Avenue at 30th Street sits 121 steps to Hotel 31. That's 121 steps. That's under a minute walk. 161 Lexington Avenue at 30th Street sits 920 steps from the largest men's shelter in the city of New York, which is Bellevue. There's also an intake center for other clients as well there. 920 steps, and they walk across 30th Street to get to the subway. It's their right, but all converging onto 30th and Lexington Avenue. It's the perfect trifecta storm. 161 Lexington Avenue at 30th Street sits within 830 steps to the Harmonia shelter, 820 steps to the Maid, 920 to the Walcott. These three facilities intersect 161 Lexington within a 3.5-minute walk. But this is only part of the 30th Street Lexington Avenue social service landscape. Brandon, can we go to the next one? Thank you. 161 Lexington at 30th Street is steps to 7 supportive housing facilities. The majority of these are battling addiction, struggling daily to remain sober. These social service providers are housed along the Lexington Avenue corridor, stretching from 23rd to 33rd Street. From 161 Lexington Avenue, Friends House, City Leaf, St. Francis, Icon House, Prince George. These 5 facilities all sit within 830 steps of 161 Lexington. The Kenmore, 920 steps. Drug facility treatments are within 230 steps, 640 steps, 1,200 steps. 161 Lexington Avenue has oversaturation of social services to begin with. And in the immediate vicinity of 161 Lexington, I think we need the next one. Sorry. Thank you. We have supportive housing. We have elementary schools. There are 2 nursery schools, 3 elementary schools, and a college dorm that sit between 70 to 110 steps, less than a minute walk from 161 Lexington. There's 4 social service agencies housing seniors. 171 Lexington Avenue, 30 steps from 161 Lexington Avenue's proposed site. 30 steps away is a senior facility. 206 East 31st Street, 165 steps away from 161 Lexington. 400 3rd Avenue, 385 3rd Avenue. These are all under 150 steps to 161 Lexington Avenue. The fair share analysis that was from Community Board 6 back in September 2020, it needs to be more comprehensive, because the real crux of the problem of 161 Lexington Avenue at 30th Street is the concentration of 19 social service facilities that run along 30th Street or within 850 steps to 161 Lexington Avenue. So what we're talking about is not ideological, we're talking geographical. 19 social service agencies within steps of 161 Lexington Avenue. So thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate it very much, and I hope everybody stays safe.
All right, thank you very much, Julie. For the interest of time, since we do have multiple speakers from 29th Street Association, I am going to go to our last speaker, who is Mario Messina, who is the president of the 29th Street Association. So please, Mario, feel free to unmute and go ahead.
Thank you, Kyle, and thank you, everybody. I really appreciate this opportunity to make a statement and also to pose a question to the representative of all the elected officials that are here tonight. The 29th Street Neighborhood Association and all its members, we are not against the shelters, and we are not against helping those in need, but we are against what is been happening. And in reality, I must say that we are frustrated and feeling neglected ourselves. We have been asking for transparency, and clearly we are not being heard. We have been asking for proper services to care for the needy, and the answer is business as usual. We have been asking for the fair share of density, and we have been graced with more facilities. There is something very wrong in this picture. So that's why I'm asking all the elected officials that they are present here to reach out to among themselves and all his colleagues to come up with a legislation or a decree that will make the community boards in Manhattan in charge of managing and discussing with the community the new facilities that are about to come online, exactly like it happens with the liquor license, where there is involvement from the community, when there is an open discussion, and when there is then a sound, a well thought out recommendation to the elected officials and to the proper agencies that they are supposed to do the job. I thank you very much for this opportunity to launch this big request to all the elected officials, and hopefully we can follow up in the days to come. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mario. Jesus, Brendan, do we have any last speakers?
Yes, there appears to be one final speaker, Michael, but no last name was given, and who is actually a resident of another community district, who wants to speak about mental health. Brendan, do we have this person?
I do not see him here.
Okay, well then, that concludes the public speakers list.
All right, thank you. So we'll now move on to the adoption of the previous meeting's full board minutes. The minutes from the December 8th full board meeting were distributed to board members ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes from that meeting. Board members, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hand through Zoom. All right, seeing no objections, the minutes from December 8th full board meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB6 website. I'll now deliver my report. So to begin, as has been mentioned before, it breaks all of our hearts that Rick Eggers passed away this past weekend due to an illness that he's been dealing with for some time. I would like to just spend a couple of seconds just to recognize him and his contributions to our board and to all of us personally, as he was a longtime member of this board. He was elected as the chair from 2015 to 2017, and he led our board valiantly through many different changes, including hiring our current district manager, and dealt with the relocation of our office, which was a big issue for our board for many years, and he was able to lead us in the right direction on that. When I think of Rick, I think one of the things that all of us can agree on is that his presence on the board was really defined by his diplomacy, his attention to detail, and something I really appreciated, which was his uncanny ability to be both goofy and a stickler for rules at the same time. I think that's something that we can all take a lesson from. But outside of the community board, Rick was really a wonderful neighbor to many. And in particular, many might remember that he had a really special passion for photography. We included many of his pictures in our CB6 newsletters, and his pictures still live on our website as well. So he was a really talented person, had a really artistic eye, and that came out in many different ways. So I just want to make sure that everyone on the board, that we recognize this, that we are here to support one another through this. And I will be sure to share more information with the board as I receive it, particularly around any services, memorial funds, things of that nature. And each of us has Rick's story, so feel free to throw some in the chat for us to read as we proceed with our meeting. I'm sure we all have them in our minds. But I think it just really goes without saying that Rick will just truly be missed by all of us. His legacy will continue through the accomplishments he presided over for our board, but more importantly, through the joy and the smiles he brought to each of us. And again, I could go on and on about what Rick meant to us and what I'm sure many of us could do it too. But I also know that he would be the first to say, enough about me, let's move on and get on with the agenda. So if anyone has any comments to make about him, feel free to throw them in the comment section. And as Anne mentioned before, I'm sure we'll have some special commemoration stuff for him as well, and I'll send that out through the board office as well. So without further ado, let's talk about something that would be very Rick, which is about minutes. So at our last meeting, executive committee meeting in December, we talked about a very slight rule change that is coming along with the virtual meetings for board meetings, in that recordings of our meetings, these recordings that we have, can now serve as minutes for board meetings, would fulfill the legal obligation for that. However, one of the things that we decided to do at exec is to have what we are going to call a meeting summary for each of these meetings, which is a much more basic version of minutes, so that if someone ever wanted to refer to one of our recordings of a meeting, that they could easily do so through what would essentially be a cover sheet for that particular virtual meeting. So I'll be sending more information about that by email. So continue to sign up for your minutes, which are now meeting summaries, cover sheets, whatever you want to call them. And you'll need to complete those for each of the meetings rather than a detailed minute summary, which includes motions and things of that nature. The recording will suffice for that. As we heard before, there is some progress on the remote meetings. So that's really great to hear from our elected officials as well. And again, as we get more information about that, we'll be sure to send that out to everybody. And last but not least, as we heard from many of our elected officials, something that I personally heard from many members of this board, but from neighbors and public as well, issues with COVID testing. So many of our electeds have actually turned their offices into testing sites, as we heard earlier tonight. So please be in touch with them. If you're having any troubles with testing, please reach out to our board staff as well, and we'll be sure to direct you in the right location. But that's what I have for tonight. I hope everyone is staying well, and just want to wish everyone a happy new year as well. So thank you. We'll now move on to the district manager's report.
Thank you, Kyle. First off, a periodic reminder that the resolutions, the draft resolutions for full board meetings can always be found on our website on the resolutions database that we host there. We've been doing this for a few months now, and it's been working out really well. The digital packet of all the draft resolutions typically goes out on the morning of full board, but oftentimes many of the resolutions we get several days in advance. And so as not to prevent getting a head start on reading them, you can always go to our website, click on resolutions, and members, you can, I guess everyone has access to our website, you can read those resolutions and really take time to study them as opposed to having to read them all very quickly on the day of. So again, a periodic reminder that that resource is available for you there. Additionally, like you've heard before, yes, the open meetings law was the permission to continue to meet on Zoom through the open meetings law has been extended. This extension was a little different than the previous ones in that there wasn't exactly a lot of clarity on the exact date that the extension went up to. It does seem that it's tied to Executive Order number 11 of 2021. And that as long as that gets extended, then this will too. It's looking like it's either towards the end of the month or another 2 weeks. So it's not, they're not giving us a long leash here. So, but we will stay on that, and we will keep the board informed as to how that works, because we do have a full slate of meetings already booked for several months now. Additionally, I know we're already running late, and so I'll keep it very brief. And I don't want to be mawkish because I know Rick would not appreciate that, but I do want to say a few words about him. I was shocked and really saddened to hear the news. I mean, we all knew that he was struggling with an illness, but you always believe that you have more time with folks than you actually do. As Kyle alluded to, I was hired as Rick was becoming chair. So he was the first chair that I got to work with, and I got to work with him pretty closely because I was new to the job, not new to Community Board 6 and not new to community boards in general, but I was new to being a district manager. There is no manual for being a district manager. They literally just sort of, there's your desk, get to work. And having him there speaking very, very closely on a daily basis, it was great to have his counsel and his guidance, being someone to bounce ideas off of. And we didn't always take the same view on things, but I always respected his views. I always thought that he was coming from a place of intelligence and open-mindedness, and something that I credit him with, and I think is very rare in this field, is that he's very self-effacing. I mean, this line of work, public service, draws so many big personalities, big egos, people who are quick to run to Twitter, to run in front of a camera, to run in front of a microphone, whether they have anything intelligent to say or not. Rick was not like that. Rick wanted to be right. He loved the work. He wanted to do the work well for the sake of doing the work well. And that is exceedingly rare in this line of work. I think all community board members, all elected officials could really learn a lot from someone like Rick. And I would love for our board and every other board in the city, community board in the city, to have 10, 20 Ricks. I can honestly say that our board is the poorer for his passing, but we can, I guess, take heart in cherishing the time that we did have with him. So I'll leave it at that. Yeah, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Now move on to our board treasurer, Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Good evening, everyone. I filed a written report with the secretary before the meeting. I am waiving my verbal report. Just wanted to say that as a former ad hoc chair of the budget committee, I really valued having Rick as a friend and having Rick as a colleague to bounce things off of as well. I can't say anything better than what Jesus just said. And I really valued having Rick around, and I'm going to miss him a lot. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Brian. All right. So we've now arrived at our committee reports and resolutions. And in order to conduct an efficient meeting, we're going to observe a few ground rules, which I mentioned at the top of the meeting. So just to remind everybody, first, no one may speak until granted the floor. Next, board members, if you have questions or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom first. The chat function, again, should not be used for board business or questions about agenda topics. Any and all such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us for any technical difficulties we're having or to state in writing information such as an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a board member is given the floor to speak, I will first identify you and then you can speak. And to members of the public, please note that during this session of the meeting, we only take questions from members of the board. And last but not least, we're required by New York State law to have a transcript of this meeting. So please keep all questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. So for tonight, we will again be using a digital ballot. The CB6 staff will post a link to the ballot in our chat. Please open this ballot, select your name from the list of board members, and select your vote on each resolution as it is presented. Do not hit submit until later in the evening, after the meeting, when the final resolution has been presented. And once we're done with the meeting, once you have indicated all of our votes on your ballot, only then should you submit the ballot. You will not be able to submit the ballot unless you vote on every resolution. And if you plan on abstaining, please select abstain. The final vote counts will be announced after the second roll call, so please remain for that. And if any part of our voting procedure is unclear, please raise your hand through Zoom and we will address your question. If you're having technical difficulties, please also connect with our board staff. So Brendan, please post the link to the digital ballots, and we will begin with our Housing and Homelessness Committee. Rich.
Thank you. I will be brief. We are meeting on Monday.
Or Tuesday.
Monday. What?
Yeah.
I thought it was Monday. I should get it accurate. Is it Tuesday?
Yeah, because MLK.
Oh, it's Tuesday because the holiday. Yeah. So we're meeting on Tuesday. We have two items of legislation to discuss. We will have a conversation about the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, which I will lead. And then we will also talk about the ending of the eviction moratorium, which has happened, or is happening Saturday, and about Brian Kavanaugh's bill that would establish a good cause requirement for evictions to decide whether we would like to suggest the board take a position on that. We will also have a presentation from the operators of the stabilization bed site that has opened at 161 Lexington. And we will briefly discuss the new safe haven facility that is opening on East 15th Street, just east of Union Square. But just briefly, because we will be getting a presentation on that in the following meeting in February. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Rich. Are there any questions from board members for the Housing and Homelessness Committee? All right, seeing none, we'll now move on to Land Use and Waterfront. Sandy, go ahead.
I sounded like Jesus just a couple days ago, but getting better. And I too will greatly miss Rick. He was an amazing man. We have our meeting coming up on the 24th. Check out the agenda and stay well.
All right. Are there any questions for Sandy and the Land Use and Waterfront Committee?
This is Lou Sapersky. bridge from the Greenway to the 53rd Street Park at Sutton Place has been completed. Could we get an update on exactly what the status is and when that will be open and what the impact on the community is likely to be?
Yes, they installed the bridge. I don't know if people saw, there's some great photographs. I think it was 2 o'clock in the morning that the bridge came in. I think we know the impacts of the community. It's going to be a great addition, but we can ask them to come and update us for completion time.
All right. Thank you, Sandy. Seeing no further questions, we'll move on to the Environment and Parks Committee. Kevin, go ahead.
Thank you, Kyle. I add my sentiments that Rick will be greatly missed. I was honored to have served on a committee he chaired, and I think we all realize he was a true guiding light. For the first time since Jeannie and I started as committee vice chair and chair in 2020, we did not have a monthly meeting. As such, I respectfully waive a report this month. But Kyle, if you need, I'm here for any questions or requested clarifications about the executive committee item number 4A. That's it.
I think, Marty, do you have a question for Kevin?
Exactly for that. Why wasn't it presented at the committee which handles those items?
So perfect segue. So we'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 4A. All right. So to give people background information on this and why it was covered by executive and not the committee, Kevin was contacted by the president of the National Arts Club after their December meeting and was told that the deadline for such a supportive letter was due before their next committee meeting. So there would be no time for the committee to actually review any such letter. Kevin brought this to me immediately, which was around the time of executive committee anyway. We presented it to executive committee, explained the extenuating circumstances around it, and the executive committee decided to vote in favor of submitting a letter on behalf of our board to support them in becoming compliant. So if there are any questions on that. Yep, Anne, I see your hand up.
Going to be
Lou, and it picked on, I selected Anne, and I'll call on you next. Anne, go ahead.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, I'm just curious, was this required, is the National Arts Club landmarked both internally and externally? Is that like, kind of, my question was, why are they coming to us at all?
Well, they do have a lot of public events. I'm going to read something that Ben Hartley, the executive director, did write to me, because I don't think a lot of people realize this. So I'm going to quote directly from a letter. The bathrooms are technically, this is the bathrooms at the National Art Club. The bathrooms are technically open to the public 24/7. In reality, for security concerns, the bathrooms are mostly available for the public between 9 a.m. and 11 p.m., those being the club hours. Many people in the community do use the bathrooms. Many older residents come and use the facilities as they go through the neighborhood. So that might be news to some people that Gramercy Park adjacent does have public restrooms, and those are the ones that we're talking about. Is that helpful at all?
I mean, I guess my question is, like, why are they not just doing it? Like, why do they need our?
Because they're it should be reflected in the resolution that they are requesting a fund match from the State Council of the Arts.
I don't think I saw that. I'm in support. I just when I know
they're requesting a grant, and they're willing to pay half of that grant. They do have enough to cover half to make it ADA. If it's not in the resolution, it clearly is a letter of support that for this grant application.
Request the chair to recognize me.
Go ahead, Lou.
I move that the resolution be amended to include a whereas that the trigger to this is the application for a grant from the state, and that whatever our position is, that should be clearly inserted in the whereas and in the resolved, because it's got to be clear that that is the position of the club if that's in fact what we adopt. Should be considered a friendly amendment, by the way.
Kevin, since you wrote the resolution, feel free to accept.
Yeah.
Yes, I did, and I see that it's not reflected. This was an attachment to the application letter, the same as elected officials had given as well. I'll be happy to do that. Do we want to go ahead and with that now?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we add a third, like the third whereas saying, this is in support of a grant, like something like that. Like it's not complicated, but yeah.
The National
Thank
Arts
you.
requested.
Well, no, thank you, and my bad for not having that in the draft. So thank you.
More eyes are better, right?
Of course. Well, sometimes. This time, yes.
I'll now recognize Ronnie. Ronnie, go ahead.
Hi. That is such a wonderful building, and I was trying to remember. I guess these are the facilities through the vestibule, and in the back. How, if it's going to be ADA, how does that address the stairs that are throughout the building? And so I'm assuming that's also not on the upstairs part.
They are working.
How is that? Is this tied in to a larger ADA upgrade in the facility? Thank you.
Yes, and Claude had the same question in the committee meeting, and Ben Hartley, again, the executive director, promptly responded that is part of their goal as well, is to get elevators fixed.
Yeah, and the distinction is that this is focused solely on a source of funding for the bathrooms.
Correct.
So they are, and this is one of the things that both Kevin and I requested too, is to make the rest of it ADA accessible as well. But this source of funding is just for the bathrooms itself. So they are pursuing other sources of funding for other aspects of the club. Sandy, go ahead.
I'd like to call the question.
All right, call to question. Is that Adam?
It is, yeah.
All right, Adam is second.
As amended. We call the question.
As amended, correct.
As amended.
Correct, Lou.
And just to clarify, the two amendments are in the third whereas, noting that this is in support of the grant, and then there's a second amendment.
I didn't hear a second amendment. I just heard the
Lou wanted that.
Added to the whereas, and as when in the added to the resolved that it's with the because of the state funding.
Oh,
yes, if we want to be more precise, this is again for the New York State Council on the Arts, and this is a capital grant application to make the bathrooms, as the resolution shows, more accessible, ADA accessible. So capital grant application should be a phrase tossed in there, probably.
I'm sorry to interject, but since the office will be the one sort of workshopping this with the author of the resolution, I understand the amendment that Lou proposed about making it clearer that this is in support of a grant application. While I think it's the resolve subtly refers to that, it never hurts to make it more explicit. But I don't understand what this additional resolved is. Doesn't that first resolve that's already there already accomplish that? Or I'm sorry, am I missing something?
The resolve should include the reference to the state grant, probably not as a separate item in the resolve, but incorporated into the existing resolve. And if it's of help, I'll be available tomorrow before noon to assist in the drafting of the language.
Okay, the current result says CB6 supports the grant application as proposed and encourages the state agency, which we can spell out, to fund the restorations. So is this a question of just filling in this current resolved, or are we writing in a completely a new one?
Filling in the resolved as you just recited it does the job very well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, since the call question has been seconded, please go to your digital ballot and mark your vote for 4A. And once you have done that, please do not hit submit. And for those of you who are not using the digital ballot, we will ask for your vote verbally during the second roll call. All right, and as we do that, we'll now move on to public safety. Matt, go ahead.
All right, just a quick note about next week's meeting. So next week we'll be covering public safety priorities across the district, and we'll be talking with some of our business improvement districts to try to identify those priorities and how to go about them. So that will be focused for next week's meeting. And then, as I mentioned earlier, in February, we'll be talking with the district attorney's office about some of their strategies to combat crime and safety and all of that. So if you're interested in those topics, please join us.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And seeing no further questions, we'll move on to the next committee, Business Affairs and Licensing.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see people in the new year. As was stated in the email that went out this morning, we have one less item to discuss. And just to give a quick background, the entity had reached out to us and said that they, instead of their initial application, which was for a full liquor license, they wanted to kind of, I guess, downgrade it to be just wine and beer and cider. And we typically waive those applications. So we waived it off of the agenda for tonight. If anyone has any questions, actually, sorry, I meant to thank Anton for his valiant leadership in our last December meeting. I wasn't able to be there, and he did a really great job talking us through these applications, in addition to kind of, excuse me, getting the conversation started about, what to do with open dining and, restaurant sheds that might not be in compliance, which I look forward to continuing in our next meeting. So thank you again, Anton, for that. I'm sure he can be helpful with any questions that anyone has, or I can try to answer them as well. But if not, Brian, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you for calling on me. Bundle, please.
Yes.
All right, is it seconded by anyone?
Second.
Great, seconded by Anne.
Thank you.
All right. So everybody, please go back to your digital ballot and mark your votes for resolution A, B, and C. And for those of you who are not using the digital ballot, we will ask for your vote verbally during the second roll call. And do not hit submit just yet. And Claire, while people are doing that, do you have any additional report to make, or?
Just one brief thing. I did see that Governor Hochul did introduce kind of bringing back to-go drinks, which was exciting for me personally, but that's just kind of a little piece of news that came out recently. It's not in effect immediately. It will take a little bit of time to go back into effect, but that's exciting, especially as we're all looking ahead towards the spring and warmer months. But other than that, I have no report to share tonight. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Claire. And seeing no further questions, we'll now move on to the Transportation Committee. Phil?
Thank you, Kyle. At the January Transportation Committee meeting, City Bike presented about their spring 2022 infill plans. The goal of the infill process is to reduce instances where a rider can't find a bike or they can't find a dock to return a bike. So starting this spring, City Bike will install 6 new stations, which equates to 305 bikes or docks, by either adding entirely new stations or extending existing stations. If you're interested to know where these 6 new stations will be located within the community board, you can email the office and we can provide you with the presentation. Also, at the January meeting, the committee passed Resolution 7A, which is on your among the list of resolutions. The resolution addresses renaming a bus stop on the M15 Select bus stop route. The resolution asks to rename First Avenue and Mitchell Place to either First Avenue and East 50th Street or First Avenue and East 50th Street, Mitchell Place, depending on guidance given from the MTA. That's all.
All right, thank you, Philip. I see a hand up from Rich.
Yeah, I just want to say that I personally was confused by the Mitchell Place stop name on the M15 yesterday, so I fully support this resolution.
Thank you, Rich. Marty, your hand is up as well.
Question.
All right, called a question. Is that seconded?
I'll second
I
it.
second it.
All right, seconded by Sandy. So please go back to your digital ballot and mark your vote for 7A.
Kyle, who called that question?
Sandy. Oh, sorry. Call the question was Marty and it was seconded by Sandy.
Thank you.
No problem. So please go to your digital ballot and mark your vote for 7A. And once you have done that, you can hit submit. And for those of you who are not using the digital ballot, we will ask for your vote verbally during the second roll call. All right, and since you deliver the report at the top, Lou, do you have a question? You're on mute.
I just want to be sure that the 4A ballot question is marked with a vote as amended, so that it's clear that that's what happened.
Yes, for our records, it is as amended, but on the digital ballot, it will just remain 4A.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, so seeing no further questions for the Transportation Committee, we'll move on to Youth and Education. John?
We did not have since we did not have a meeting in December, we will be having our January meeting on the 25th, to which we invite you all. I will waive my report for tonight, but just add my feelings about Rick and as a person, the chair who welcomed me to this board. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. And seeing no further questions, we'll move on to Budget and Governmental Affairs. Reshma?
Thank you, Kyle. And as you all know, Rick was chair of this committee, and I am deeply saddened by his passing. He was invaluable to the committee and to the board and to the community, and he was such a source of information for newer members like myself, and was a mentor and really helped me learn a lot about the work of the community board and the budget. And I will really miss him. And I know everyone else has said a lot, so I won't take up any more time, but I just wanted to acknowledge him as chair of this committee. And we had our monthly meeting yesterday, which, his absence was felt at, and we spoke about a bill in the state Senate, S808, which is a one fair wage bill. And, our committee is Budget and Governmental Affairs. And We've been trying to lean in more on talking about governmental affairs, and we had Senator Hoyleman, who was one of the co-sponsors of the bill. His office, Sam Vasquez from his office, was very kind and came and spoke with us and spoke about the bill, as well as we had a representative from One Fair Wage come speak. The meeting is on YouTube, and if anyone is interested to learn more, I recommend that you take a look at the CB6 YouTube page. We will be proposing a resolution. We're going to discuss this further at our February meeting before presenting the resolution. And so at the February full board, expect a resolution of either, what we want to recommend for the state Senate bill, as well as an equivalent bill in the state assembly.
All right, thank you, Reshma. And just for the rest of the board, so that they know, I have, of course, elevated Reshma to the chair of the committee. Obviously, the circumstances are very sad, but I can't think of anyone better to lead that committee than someone who was closely mentored by Rick. So I know you're going to continue with the same leadership in that role, and thank you for your service on that. All right. Yeah, seeing no further questions for the committee, we will move on to Health and Human Services. Alvin, go ahead.
Thank you, Kyle. Good evening, everyone. In our Health and Human Services meeting tomorrow, we will continue to discuss on legislation that would establish a single-payer health insurance system for New York State residents. Also, the discussion on retired municipal employees is moved to the Medicare Advantage Plus plan, and we have a speaker on this topic tomorrow. I want to speak about our third series on healthy living in the community, which is on January 26th from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. The topic is staying active as you get older. We have a speaker from the American College of Sports Medicine, who is a certified exercise physiologist at NYU Langone's Sports Performance Center. So it will be great if everyone in this meeting tune in for this series. You will hear many health benefits of exercise and learn some easy activities you can do right at home to improve strength, flexibility, and cardiovascular fitness. Especially, we are mostly home during this COVID crisis. I would like to talk about Rick. Rick was the chair when I started as member of Community Board 6, and he gave me guidance and I learned a lot from him. So he is in my thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Elvie. I'm not seeing any questions for your committee. So we will move on to old or new business. So board members, if you have any or old new business to state, please raise your hand through Zoom. Marty, go ahead.
Yeah, many years ago, we questioned the city's fair share policy and how they were allocating facilities. At the time, we were being inundated by drug rehab centers and places that were distributing methadone centers. That's what it was. And the city came and gave a big presentation insofar as the scoring of how this kind of facility or that kind of facility is situated, that they're not responsible for state or federal facilities that are situated within the board area. It would behoove us to see if that fair share policy is still being organized and run in a fair manner, because obvious from the earlier speakers, there's an influx that probably is more than what we deserve.
Thank you, Marty. Yeah, and that's something I'm talking about with Rich, and we'll continue to prepare for that in Tuesday's meeting, and we'll hear a little bit more from DHS about that as well. So thank you for bringing that up. Matt, go ahead.
Thank you, Kyle. I just wanted to share an experience that I had the other day, picking my daughter up from school along the First Avenue corridor from the 20s uptown. And it's something that I've raised before, and I really think it's something that we should address because it's something that as a community board we can address. The overcrowding of the M15 bus when school is let out at the end of the day is dangerous for our kids. It's unfair to our kids and the residents of the community who have to pack themselves onto these accordion buses to such a degree that it's impossible to socially distance from one another. But more than that, my biggest fear when I saw what was happening here at those entrances and exits to that bus was that a kid will fall under the back wheels of a bus one day. And it's a simple enough function to have more buses along that route at or around the time that the schools let out, from 2:30 to 3:15. It's one of the simplest things that we can do as a community to protect our children, protect our residents. And I really think that we need to get the ball rolling on that, because when I saw it with my own eyes, I had heard about it anecdotally from my daughter and her friends. But when I saw it, I just really couldn't believe it. I mean, it bothered me. So it's, I encourage the Transportation Committee to really look at that.
Thank you, Matt. Let's bring that up at next week's exec meeting as well. Please don't forget to remind us about that. All right, seeing no further new or old business, we'll now move on to the second roll call. And please make sure you've submitted your digital ballots.
Bear with me, I'm going to call the roll. Just looking for my Airtable. Actually, Jesus, I hate to do it to you, but can you call the roll? I'm having trouble finding my Airtable. I had it.
Or I can do it.
Wait, I can do it. I found it. Okay. Claude Winfield. Claude?
Present.
Okay. Ronnie White.
Present.
Thank you, Ronnie. Maura Wong.
Present.
Brian Van Nieuwenhoven.
Present.
Corinne Vanderdonk. Corinne? Okay. Mark Thompson.
Over here.
Thank you, Mark. Andrew Suresh.
Here.
Thank you. Susan Steinberg.
Here.
Letty Simon.
Here.
Sandro Sherrod.
Here.
Sean Sherman.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Seema Shah.
Present.
Lou Sapersky.
Yo.
Ann Seligman.
Here, and hope everybody feels better soon.
Thank you, Ann. Lauren Scher.
Present.
Thank you. Matt Robert. Oh, excuse me. Gene Santoro. All right. Matt Roberts.
Still here.
Reshma Patel.
Here.
Stephen O.
Here.
Kevin O'Keefe.
Present.
Rajesh Nayar.
Present.
Philip Napolitano.
Yes.
Richard Mintz.
Present.
Wells Magali.
Not here.
Okay. Sandra McKee,
Present.
Kavitha Matthew,
Here.
Anton Malner,
Present.
Sandra Leftoff,
Here.
Abigail Kruzmark,
Here.
John Keller,
Present.
Paige Judge,
Here.
Molly Hollister,
Here.
Adam Hartke,
Here.
Andrew Gross,
Present.
Eric Goldberg,
Present.
Charles Fernandez,
Present.
Jeannie D'Onofrio,
Present.
Beatrice Disman,
Present.
Daniel Devine,
Present.
Michael Devereaux,
Present.
Stuart Desser,
Present.
Jim Collins. Jim?
Jim is having some technical difficulties, but he has just communicated to the office that he is present.
Okay, great. I saw him as a participant. Claire Brennan.
I'm here.
Okay, I'm here. Elvie Barroso. Marty Barrett.
Present.
Neil Barkley. Neil? Okay, Asia Body.
Present.
Kyle Athide.
Present.
Okay. That concludes the second roll call. We'll now read some results from the resolutions. And Jesus, let me know if there's anybody who hasn't submitted a ballot. It looks like we have everybody.
It looks like Neil Barkley didn't submit a ballot, but he may have already gone. So we'll just go on without him. It looks like Wells Magali didn't submit a ballot, but she may have left early as well, in which case we'll just move on without her.
Well, Walls wasn't here today, so she shouldn't have a ballot.
I saw her after the first roll call, but I don't know if she doesn't. I don't see her now.
Okay, well, Executive Committee Resolution 4A, there were 44 in favor, 1 abstention. The resolution carries. Resolution 6A, there were 44 in favor, 1 not entitled. That passes. 6B, 45 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, no not entitled. That passes. We've got for 6C, 45 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, no not entitled. That passes. Transportation 7A, we have 44 in favor, 1 opposed, 0 abstentions, excuse me, and no not entitled. That passes. That concludes the results of the resolutions.
All right, thank you. So before I adjourn the meeting, because we're done with the roll call, if anyone needs to drop off, feel free to drop off. But I did want to use a couple of minutes to let anyone just kind of share or express any sentiments that they're feeling about Rick. I know that it's still, at least for me, very surreal and shocking, even though I was aware that he was dealing with an illness. You know, we never think it's going to happen until it happens. So I just wanted to give a couple of minutes to people who did want to express some things who maybe didn't have an opportunity to before. We will, I've received a number of different requests about, different ways to memorialize him and, sort of bring everybody together to kind of pay our respects. And again, any official memorial services I will be sharing with the entire board. I'll be coordinating with the people who discuss different things of bringing people together to do that as well. But if anyone wants to take some time right now to express anything, I did want to give it to people. And again, because we've already taken the second roll call, please feel free to drop off if you need to get to other things. It is late. Anne, go ahead.
Well, I definitely want to say stuff about Rick, maybe not right here, but I also want to recognize, I don't know if Adam is still here, um, but you know, as much as I love Rick, one of the things that is making me feel better is seeing the pictures of Adam's beautiful new baby. So, sorry, like I've been holding it together, but so, um, I'll stop.
No, that's absolutely fine. It's still raw for a lot of us, and it's also a reason that I didn't want to, pass up on this opportunity since we're all gathered here. And this is, for many of us, the first connection we had with Rick. I'm on community board because of Rick. I was just a kid attending board meetings and interrupting and asking questions, and he was the person who came up to me and said, "Hey, you should be on community board. The application is due tomorrow." So I just I wanted to give an opportunity, because I know there will be future opportunities to do such thing, but because it is still so raw, this is the first meeting after hearing the news, and this is where most of us first met him and interacted with him. I did want to give some space for that. I didn't want to pass that up for anybody. And I know some people did have a chance to mention it, but if anyone else wants to, feel free to go ahead.
Carl, this is B. I just want to mention a couple of things. I met Rick from the community board, but we became friends. Both of us had U.S. government experience, so that we really could discuss bureaucracy. He was a stickler for details, but what an inspiring person he was, and what a caring person. What is so hard to take when I saw the note is I had seen him very recently. He was very enthusiastic about the surgery he was having. He spoke about it. He knew it was going to be difficult. It had to be approved really by specialists around the country. But his attitude of what he was going through, I don't think I've met someone as strong or as positive. So when the news came in, I had actually sent him a note, text him, because that's how we used to do, to say I hope he was getting home for Christmas, which was what his plan was. And then when the note came in, it was just devastating. So I think all of us would like to do something, Carl. And I think what's appropriate, we should do it as a community board.
Yeah, so just to give people some, background, and obviously these are just ideas floating around, and we'll obviously discuss them further, but, thinking about things like dedicating a bench in his name. I know that was something that was special to him, that he had mentioned to many of us, I think, in different occasions. But just, there are different ways that we can memorialize them, and we'll continue to have those discussions, and bring it to executive committee to discuss it there, and bring it to full board to see if there's anything that we can do as a whole, because I want everybody's input on it, and everybody knew him in so many different ways. And I know he'd be annoyed at the attention he'd be getting for it, and the length of a meeting that would be increased by talking about it, but he deserves it. If anybody deserved time on the agenda, it's Rick. So we'll definitely be having those conversations. And again, I know many of us, are getting information from different people in different capacities that we knew him, but as I continue to get it, I'll be sure to share it with the rest of the board, so that we can all have input and participate in those services. But does anyone have anything else to say? If anyone, I just, again, want to give people the space. I know it could be cathartic for many, so just want to give that space before we conclude tonight's meeting. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything else. Again, listen, on a personal note, feel free to reach out to me if you just want to reminisce about Rick, and feel free to reach out to your friends on the board as well. This is a time to do such things. Rick and I have been planning to just even meet in person and take walks, but with COVID and, with his illness as well, it was hard to do that. So I think, taking the lesson from that, as well as to always, stay in touch with everybody. We are a family. And I think Rick was the epitome of that. So, and we're all feeling that today, and that's why we're feeling it. So if there are no other comments, seeing no further business, I am adjourning the meeting at 9:36 p.m. And so I hope everyone stays well. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Night all.
Bye.
Good night. Be safe all.